We do have some area directors with us, I think. Probably not as many as we're expecting, but we can have a bit of fun and a bit of learning ourselves as we go along, I'm sure. Tonight's session is designed to provide an outline of how area councils are made up first, what to do and how to manage area council meetings. After a brief introduction, I will introduce our panellists who will each provide an insight from their own experience into area council meetings, followed by a look at how area council meetings should or could be run. And we will be encouraging people to ask questions or to have some input during the session, because it's always best to have many minds contributing to a discussion like this. First of all, before I introduce the panel, I would just mention that sometimes if we had a lot of newer area directors on board, it would be handy to just go over what an area council is, because I think there are some area directors come into the role and probably don't even realise they have to have an area council or an area council meeting, especially if they don't attend their area director training. But anyway, that's another story. But area councils are, of course, made up primarily of the area director, him or herself, as the chair. Every club president, vice president education and vice president membership of clubs within the area are automatically members of the area council, and then there can be other officers as well appointed by the area director or elected even by the area council, such as the assistant area director for program quality or the assistant area director for club growth, and an area secretary as well. It's always good to take notes and minutes of what happens at any meeting, especially area council meetings. That's just as important as any meeting. Area council meetings should be held at least twice a year, and I know there are some areas that have more than the minimum. And importantly, area directors should provide 4 weeks notice of area council meetings to members of the area council. It's up to the area director as well as whether they invite other members within the area and any other special guests, but we might come to that as we get through our discussion a little bit later. What goes on at an area council meeting? Well, again, we're probably preaching a lot to the converted within this current room, but just to go over it so we understand what we're talking about, unless other notice has been noted on the agenda, the business at council meetings will include such things as the presentation and discussion of club success plans and club progress in the DCP or the Distinguished Club Program, usually by way of club reports. And that's something which has really been a core activity of area council meetings ever since area councils existed, I think. Area council meetings could look at club officer training reports. They could look at plans for area events such as contests or educational activities or even social activities. And they should look at consideration of area director candidates for the following year, either by election or recommendation to the district director for appointment, depending on what districts say in their district administrative or their continuing motions or their bylaws, or however those are structured. Now, gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our panellists this evening. First of all, we have Bruce Kerr, and thank you, Bruce, for that in-between session of where are we from? I think that was really good to do that. But Bruce has been a member of Toastmasters for 23 years, all that time I'm pretty sure in District 69. He's served in all roles within the club environment and has served as area director, and he has a particular appreciation for that role. And during that time, he's a member of Meeting Masters Toastmasters and has developed a good knowledge and use of meeting procedures during this time. Murray Coutts is a member of District 72 and I'm assuming both District 72 and 112 now, New Zealand, 112. He's a past district director, having taken District 72 to Distinguished in his year 2012-2013. His many other roles in Toastmasters have included district parliamentarian and chair of the committee that wrote the District 112 procedures document when it was formed out of the reformation of District 72 a couple of years ago now. Jan Vecchio is our third panellist, and Jan has had a long and distinguished career in Toastmasters, including as District Governor of District 70 and Finance Manager for District 70 and for District 90. Jan has been parliamentarian in District 70 and is currently in her second term as parliamentarian for District 90. So quite a distinguished panel we have with us tonight. So first of all, I'm going to ask our panel one by one. I'll go in that order that I introduced, Bruce first, then Murray, then Jan. From your experience, and just a couple of minutes each from you, and after we have this first little round, we will open the room for discussion or questions. My question to you is, how do you see an area council operating? And from your own experience, how have they operated, and what do you think they could achieve as a unit within the Toastmaster structure? So Bruce, to you first. What's your experience with area councils and area council meetings?
The area council meetings I have attended, and even the couple I have run as area director, have been stultifyingly mundane. And we covered everything that you pointed out before, but this is before we had the Toastmasters scoreboard online, where everything is revealed, what club is doing what on that chart. So what we have done traditionally, I think we need to get away from. And I went to another council meeting on Tuesday night, which was run by Annette Mayfield. It was excellent. It was not at all formal, but it was in fact a planning session for the rest of the year. And it was quite useful and informative. And as I say, everything in the bureaucratic sense is available on the net today. So we didn't need to report anything. So that covers me, I think.
Thank you very much for that, Bruce. Yes, that's good. That's exactly what we need. Murray, over to you. Your experience of area council meetings and how you've seen them achieve or operate up until this point in time.
I found there's a wide variance in area council meetings. I know in my home area, they work really, really well. We've adopted the practice of having our first area council meeting in the last half of June before the area director takes office, and that's ready to plan all the contests. In my district, we do all 4 contests, 2 division contests in November and 2 in April, with the finals in May. But we actually get together, we get the presidents together, we work out the dates for the area contest, and we also allocate the contest chair roles between the presidents, incoming presidents. That side of it works. So we actually, the clubs can go into the year knowing when to fit in their contest, that type of thing. The other area which I find quite useful with area councils, where the clubs in the area are sort of in relatively close proximity. I used to find that each club with their promotion felt themselves in conflict, in competition with the neighbouring clubs. And we changed that conversation to actually getting neighbouring clubs combining in promotion. It saved costs, but it took some explaining, but now they actually accept that they're not in competition with each other. There's actually probably enough people who aren't Toastmasters yet around, maybe. One of the things that what I have noticed in my district, I've been thinking about this for a fair bit, the quality of the training of incoming area directors when it comes to area council meetings really depends on who's doing the training, because it's like somebody does a they teach based on their experience, and if there's something missing in their experience, it doesn't get covered, and then next year something else gets dropped from because it wasn't in their experience, and somehow we get away from a core reason. I think it's really important that at district officer training, that the person who trains area directors in council meetings is soundly based in the benefits and the roles of an area council meeting. And there is actually, Toastmasters International have just, I've only just found it, and I think it's very, very new, put together an educational for district training on area council meetings, and I've just popped it into the link in the chat. I found it this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, Murray. I think that's a good resource. I did have a look at that this morning too, and it's very worthwhile. It's funny how they spring these things on you at the last minute, and you don't even know they exist, even after most districts have probably done their training. But anyway, it's always something we look at in the future. So yes, Murray, thank you. And now to Jan, your experience of area council meetings and how they've run, or what they've done in the past.
Thank you, Bob. Back in the early part of this century, when I was a club president, and I was the president for 2 years, and I had two excellent area governors, as they were back then. And I think without them, my club would not have survived, because it was an opportunity to get together with the other clubs and talk about membership problems. It was about getting support from the other clubs. So the other clubs in my area, which was Area 22, came to, in fact, it was Area 8 at that point, but they came together, they came into my club and helped to support and helped to build the membership. So I found the connection there with other clubs was just invaluable. When I became an area director, so I was the first area governor of Area 22 in which was back then District 70, and we always had an area council meeting prior to the district executive committee meeting, because back then we didn't have online reports, statistics or anything. It was all done by paper. So we, as area directors, had to report, or we had to get our clubs to report to us what was happening in the clubs. Then we reported that to the division director. The division director reported it further up the line. So before every DEC meeting, there was an area council meeting. Moving along a little, I was Area 17 director in Area 90 a few years ago. But because of the distance, my nearest club was 80 kilometres, the next one was 120, and then we were looking at 200 kilometres to the next clubs. It was geographically impossible, really, to hold face-to-face area council meetings. And it was before we were doing Zoom. But I did keep my clubs informed of what was happening within the area by email, by phone call, and in every other way possible, just to keep the group connected. But I found that a good area council meeting has always had an educational component, but to me, it's about networking with the other clubs and getting the support of everybody, because the clubs work as a team and help one another. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Jan. My experience as well has been similar to many of our panelists who have indicated that it can run from the bare minimum, where an area council meeting can quite wrongly be hastily convened before an area contest day. I've seen that happen before, and it's just a quick cover of a couple of things and little more than half an hour, ranging through to the concept of area council meetings as a social function at a coffee shop or a restaurant. Obviously, it's difficult to do that in parts of the world where clubs are a fair distance from each other, and in my part of the world, Northern Division in District 90, that is certainly the case. We're not lucky enough to have too many clubs all near each other. But then to a more how would you say, pre-planned online meeting where it's included some element of education as well as the reporting and the networking and the management of activities in the area. So it is in the time that I've been in Toastmasters, I've had the opportunity to experience many different types of area council meetings, and they've all been interesting in one way or another. But I think, again, just reiterating, the aim of our meeting tonight is to try and come up with some best practice, if you like, of how area councils should run and be run. Now, I will ask if there's anyone in the room who has any questions, or if you do, just raise your hand. Or if you, Udo, I think your hand was just before Liz.
It doesn't matter. It is. It is. Just Bruce, that area council meeting that you went to on Tuesday, you said it was a planning meeting. Did they actually use the area success plan as the format for the planning, or was it just basically just done on a piece of paper?
There's a free-form discussion on how we're going to run our contest, how we're going to arrange the judges, how we're going to arrange the area conference, and then the club success plan was discussed, how we're all going to address it, and Annette, as area director at that stage, was trying to herd us into a bit of a line on how she wants us all to operate. And as you all ex-area directors, you know how successful that can be. But it was actually, I found a very useful area council meeting, even though we didn't go through all the formalities. And we will have a formal meeting later in the year, date to be advised.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Udo. Thank you, Bruce. Now, Liz, your question or comment.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I'd be interested to for some suggestions on what would be suitable educational topics to include in an area meeting. We don't want to do well, I wouldn't have thought we wanted to do what was generally done at a club level. So what would be some suggestions for good topics to be included?
We'll go to the panel on that one. We'll start with you, Bruce.
Off the top of my head, I have no idea what to offer you on that. Since we're talking about planning, etc., and we have this resource that was just offered to us, I think maybe on how to run a proper upper level planning session would be a useful educational topic.
And Bruce, I think going on from what you mentioned before from that recent area council meeting, maybe an educational on contests, an update on contest rules, that could be something, for example.
Yes, well, that was discussed, and we are having, for the VPEs, they are having a separate head-to-head on that regarding the contest rules and changes. So that was addressed in the meeting, and that's been taken offline to be handled separately by the VPEs.
Okay. Murray, ideas from you?
Yes. I've always strongly recommended that an incoming area director gets copies of the area directors' reports from that their predecessor did. From that, you can identify what the needs of your clubs are, and that in turn should indicate what areas of education you do at the meetings.
Okay.
It's sort of, people get, if you hypothetically, if all the clubs in your area are doing really well in the area in one specific topic, receiving a training on it at an area council meeting will just wreck the credibility of the area director.
Okay. And Murray, I think I actually learned something at our recent area director training, and I think that now current area directors automatically have access to the most recent set of area director reports. Would that be right, Pieter? Are you still there? Tanya?
They do, yes.
There you are.
They have the round 2 definitely, from what I understand, but I'm not sure about the round 1.
Oh, okay. All right. But yes, it is
That's on the TI website, District Central.
on
Yep.
District Central, I imagine that would be. But it is a good idea, Murray, and I think it also, even if that wasn't there, because we did discuss this in the area director training that we just had, it's a good opportunity for the current area director to maintain that contact with the previous area director and get them to talk about their experience with the clubs as well as having those reports. I think that's probably quite good.
I'd also add, if I may, if there's new things coming out like this one on effective area meetings, which I spotted today. There's new stuff in that area popping up quite rapidly, and as was mentioned, the districts have generally finished their district officer initial training, but other things do come up. Now, it's not probably the area directors won't always spot it, but either a trio member or division director probably would, and just pass it down as suggestions for topics.
Yep. That was actually one thing I was going to mention, is that if area directors don't already do it, they should, I believe they should invite their division directors to their area council meetings and ask them to provide them with any updates from the district point of view, or Toastmasters International, which would cover that as well. Jen, any suggestions for area council meeting educationals?
Membership building, of course, which I think is a primary concern for most clubs, and obviously running contests, but also with moments of truth. Not that you would run a moments of truth in an area council meeting, but helping or getting the clubs to work out how they can conduct a moments of truth within their club meeting. Because as you know, if it's done properly, probably could take 2 hours, take up the whole meeting, a moments of truth. So how you can go about having a moments of truth, taking up maybe only half an hour of your club meeting time. So working that out, and obviously looking at publicity and everything as well for membership building. So they'd be my suggestions.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Any other questions from Jim?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The question, or sort of foreshadowed already by Liz, but I'll ask it anyway. That is, in a council meeting, you've got the formalities at the beginning, the apologies, the minutes, previous minutes, business reports, but after that, the general items of business. How could a new area director who's not sure what even an area council meeting is, how would they work out what items to put on the agenda and what to discuss in that bottom section of the meeting? What tips and tricks could we give to them so that they would know what to actually discuss at a council meeting up after the formalities section?
Yeah, okay, thanks, Jim. We'll go to the panel 2 on that one. We might go in reverse order this time. Jan.
The current area, so somebody comes in as an area director, presumably they have been a member of an area council before that, either as a VPM, a VPE, or a club president, and would have attended area council meetings and would follow in the footsteps of the previous area director, assuming that area director did have area council meetings. But I think you'd find information in the district leadership handbook as to what to include, and also in the policy document in the governing documents for Toastmasters International. I think you'd find a few hints there as to what to include in on the agenda.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Murray, anything to add?
Yep. I didn't find a lot which was very useful about an area council meeting in the district leadership handbook, but when I went to protocol 7.1, it actually gives you your agenda. And the first item is club success plans and progress in the DCP. Then next item is club officer training attendance reports. So who's been to training, who still needs to go to training, depending how they fit in with the training cycle. And plans for area events such as training and speech contests. And the last one is, if an area elects an area director, they do that, but in my district we don't.
Or in that case, they consider recommendations.
In my district we made all the area directors appointed positions. So because we were finding that people weren't putting their hands up because they still wanted to compete.
Yeah, no, that's an option for the district council to make. Just before I come back to you, Joan, Bruce, did you have anything to add to content for agenda?
I pretty much concur with what Jan said, in that they should have, before they're an area director, they should have some history at a club level.
Yep.
And let's face it, everything is there in history from the previous year or even the year before that, with agendas and minutes of previous council meetings. Everything is available at the end of a couple of phone calls.
Yep.
And I don't think there's anybody in our organisation who does not have a phone in their hip pocket.
There will be cases, however, where...
Sorry, may I add one thing more? Something that just occurred to me.
Sorry, Murray.
Something, if I can add something which just occurred to me. I haven't seen it done, but I think it would make a huge difference, is actually at every area council have somebody in the role of general evaluator.
It's worth thinking about. Good idea.
Mm.
Joan, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I'd be interested to know what the panel thinks about having an administration type item on the agenda where you may know this, as district directors, you know these things, that quite often clubs don't have their listing of executives in. Then that affects their proxies process. And there's a lot of things that, well, the area directors could take control of and check with their clubs to make sure all these fundamental things are done, particularly right at the beginning of their very first meeting. Right, who's got their executive lists in? Who's done this? Who's done that? When the proxies come, check that they put their proxies in. I mean, it's ridiculous that we have somebody that chases that up for the whole district. Yeah. Area directors should take ownership of that, and perhaps by putting things like that on their agenda, some of the club leaders don't even understand that. I was in a training session where a member of a club said, that was on the executive, oh, I just want to ask about the voting. Now, they didn't really understand the proxy process at all. So I think that maybe we should bring our clubs up to date with a lot of things that they need to do in their clubs. I don't know whether they know a lot of these things, even though we sort of think they do, but the area director could be a great check on those sort of things. Yeah.
Yes, good suggestion. Thank you. I think Con was next with his hand up.
Thanks, Bob. I have a question to the panel. How can area directors support corporate clubs? Because corporate clubs are a little bit different to community clubs, and they need some different sort of attention, because corporate clubs, they're training for gaining and retaining members, and the way they run their club meetings is a little bit different. So what's the best approach for an area director to handle corporate clubs, to anyone on the panel?
Con, that's a curly one. Any of our panel members want to take that one on? No, it's shaking heads. Might take that one on notice, Con, but I think it is a very good one. It's probably more of a district challenge than an area challenge, but it obviously does come back to area in the end and to the clubs themselves. And that in divisions where there are lots of corporate clubs, it probably needs a fairly well planned approach to be able to deal with the problems that corporate clubs have. And I know both in District 70 and District 90 to a lesser extent, they have been hugely problematic from time to time. So interesting question, Con. I think Udo, your hand might have been up next.
Either me or Bruce, but yeah, just going back to what Joan was saying, about notification as to a timetable and things like that. Clubs are actually, or club officers are actually given that. They're given that every month by the club officer newsletter. And TI actually lists us under a section what's due now in that newsletter. It's just that the executive officers don't seem to read things, or they've opted out, and they don't get any things from TI, which is a problem. But you know, they have tried to address that situation. I totally agree with what Joan is saying, but I'm just also saying that TI has known that and are addressing it. But it's just a matter of taking the horse to the water, but they won't drink.
So I think that in essence is more of a management and information process. For example, in making sure that clubs have their officer list in, that should be probably an agenda item for the last area council meeting of the year, because that has to be done technically before the end of the year to qualify for a distinguished club program point. But that's an information process that, as Rudo says, does come through TI quite regularly, but do people read that message? But then I think from my perspective, I think the area director could well take that on as a responsibility to communicate, to forward and make sure that message gets through to the clubs. We'll come back to the panel in a moment, but I'll just go to Bruce. Bruce,
okay, as regard running an area council meeting, as mentioned before, some people would not know how to do that. And the thing is, the club I'm in, once a month, we run a formal business session. Sometimes they're a little bit shambolic, but we managed to get through everything a la Rentons. It's all done each time and run out of business. It's a learning session every month for all of us. And if clubs are not doing that, you will get people in senior positions who are shocked and amazed that there are written rules for running a meeting.
Yes.
So I think that needs to be encouraged a bit more.
We're going to come to that in a second, Bruce, in our second round, if we have time to do that, which I think we will. But I'll just ask Jim, did you have a question or?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, just very quickly. Previously, you talked about area council proxies. Could you explain to everyone, for the new area director's benefit, the difference between online and in-person proxies, how they differ?
I might add that to the agenda and come back to that in a moment.
Okay, thank you.
We'll just go into our second major session because Bruce has actually raised it, and I think it's a good subject area to make sure that we cover tonight. And that is, how do we run an area council meeting? Do we agree that it should be run strictly according to the rules of parliamentary procedure or not? So I'll go again in reverse order because we've had a little bit of a comment from Bruce, but we'll finish on Bruce this time around. We'll start again. We'll start with Murray. We'll start in the middle this time.
Okay. To start with, you have a well-designed agenda, which is out plenty of time before the meeting. And so the people who are representing their clubs are fully aware of what information they may have to provide at the meeting, those types of things. So, and that will help the meeting run very smoothly. Now, as far as the meeting procedure goes, you follow the agenda, you go well. A lot of it depends on the culture of your area. For example, in one of the areas I'm in, we essentially do everything by consensus. In 6 years, I can never remember a vote at an area council meeting because we sort things out and we come to a consensus on that. So those types of things, but it's by having an agenda and the chair of the meeting ensuring that we stick to the agenda and we don't go off on all those lovely tangents and that type of thing. And use the format and the agenda at the start of the agenda, you say what the purpose of the meeting is. What do we need to achieve in this meeting? Why are we taking up your time?
Basic but important meeting procedure.
Pretty well.
And it does come down to the agenda. Jan, what do you think?
To some extent, we need to have formalities following Renton's rules, you know, the apologies, but understanding how the quorum is made up, what to do if there's a tie in the voting. But and also reports, you know, I think it's good practice to put the reports forward to move in second, or, you know, adopt, receive, etc. So, but then I think there should just be a lot of general discussion. You know, some informality there, but I think initially, and as Murray said, there needs to be an agenda. We need to know there is a reason for us to be there. Otherwise, what is the purpose of going to the area council meeting at all? So to some extent, formality, but then also breaking into general discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Bruce, thank you for your rounding out.
Okay, well, I concur with Murray and Jan. Yes, you need the agenda, you need your formality to get the formalities ticked off, and then have the reports submitted and proper discussion. But then once all that is out of the way, you can lurch into general business, and in general business, you can suspend the normal rules of meetings and have a bit of free form discussion. And basically it's like having two bob each way.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. Yes, so that was one thing I was going to mention, that I personally believe all meetings like this should be run strictly according to meeting procedure, but with a light hand and with the use of that suspension of the rules of debate, because that is an empowerment for a meeting situation. But given that, I would strongly encourage people to have someone ready to move that the rules of debate be reinstated if a meeting is getting out of control, which can happen in that free-form discussion, so that a meeting can then become brought back into order. So in essence, what we're saying, I suppose, is that unless people already have a good knowledge and ability to use meeting procedure with any meeting, including area council meetings, they should come along and join meeting masters, Toastmasters, shouldn't they, and learn about it, because that is something that will hold them in good stead. Does anybody else in the room have any particular questions on this part of our discussion tonight, or comments to make? Any hands going up? Oh, yes, Marina.
Bob, I just wanted to find out, can the council meeting be separate to the speech contest? I understand it can be.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And can be on Zoom.
Yep.
With those people that are invited.
Yeah, area council meetings can be held in person and online. No meeting of hybrid, but I am assuming that if they're held online, they can be hybrid. We won't get into that discussion tonight. All right, we are on our orange slide, orange window. So I'm going to wrap it up now, but I will wrap it up by going for final comments to our panel in the original order that we started. We'll start with you, Bruce. Any final comments or thoughts about anything that we've talked about tonight? Any final words?
Yes, I think Murray is correct. The purpose of the meeting needs to be stated so everybody knows why the hell they're giving up their Saturday morning or whatever. And I really think we can get away from the reporting session a bit more now that the dashboard is freely available to everybody and it's up to date and current, and get more into the planning and helping situation to support other clubs, to support ourselves, and, you know, take internal advantage of knowledge.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Murray?
A very well-run area council meeting benefits the district. What I mean by that is you could have an area director who's come from a club who is very, very good at meeting procedure. You may have the opposite. But your area directors, if they choose to be, are on the path to the trio. And if they master the skills of running a area council meeting very, very well, when they become their division director with their division council and when they become the district director with the district council, it's the first level of training in running a meeting outside of your club. And it is a brilliant opportunity for personal development.
Yeah, quite right. Thank you, Murray. And Jan?
I think we've covered a lot here today. You know, when I mentioned when I first spoke about we used to have our area council meetings before the DEC, I was thinking maybe after each DEC meeting, there should be a half hour or 1 hour area council meeting, because the area directors are the conduit of information from the district down to the clubs. And as Udo pointed out, the club presidents, club trios, members, they quite often opt out of getting any information from Toastmasters International. They tend not to read emails, or they lose them in the pile of emails that they get. But if there is a area council meeting following the DEC, that the area director can relay that information that has come through from the district to the club presidents.
Good suggestion. Thank you very much, Jan. Well, like all good meetings, I'm going to note that we have 2 items of business placed on notice for our next session. Or no, not our next session, but we're going to follow up 2 things that we weren't able to answer tonight. And that was, first of all, the concept of how we can support corporate clubs, which I think is very important, and I would certainly encourage anyone in that situation tonight to take that to the district and look at how that might be dealt with if it hasn't already been, and I'm sure in many ways it is. And the second one, which we don't have time to get into in detail, is proxies. My understanding is that you can have proxies for an area council meeting, and I don't think that's any part of the change that's being discussed at the international business meeting. That's purely in relation to district meetings, council meetings. But we will take that on notice and let everyone know what the situation is with that.
Yeah.
And maybe that might even inspire some future education sessions.
I believe that's correct. It's not changing.
No. So with that, we are on the red light. Thank you all very much. I think we've achieved the purpose tonight. We've had a good discussion about area council meetings, what